Let's go to the opposition leader Peter Dutton now. I spoke with him earlier and asked him whether all the pressure should be on Iran as the malevolent player in the region.
Without question, Chris, that is exactly right. And I think every decent-minded person, whether a leader of a Western country or anybody across the world, frankly, should be looking on in the Middle East at the moment, worried about some of the commentary. Hamas is a listed terrorist organisation. Hezbollah, the Houthis, all sponsored by Iran. All of these organisations, all of these movements have one outcome in mind, and that is to destroy Israel and to drive people from the river to the sea, as they say. And the fact that people wouldn't be standing with Israel and would be equivocating or somehow giving comfort in their language to the Iranians is beyond anyone's comprehension. So I do think we need a reality check, and we need to provide every support we can to Israel to make sure that peace can prevail in the Middle East, because if it continues on the path it is at the moment, I think the world is in a very precarious position.
Now, we all fear for and care for innocent civilians caught up in all of this, but the federal government's announced another $10 million through UN charities to help in Gaza. Should we be worried about this, given we've had the revelations of UN organisations in Gaza being infiltrated and by Hamas operatives?
Well, Chris, I just think Australians who are very generous and big-hearted want to know that aid money is going to provide support to the people that it was intended to help. And if we're talking about a program that diverts money into the hands of terrorist groups or away from those who are in need of food and medical supplies, etc., then there should be full transparency here. The onus is on Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese to explain why the UN organisation has legitimacy in distributing this aid, when we know that, as you point out, there have been findings in relation to some of the workers within this particular program who have been involved in terrorist activity or alleged to have been involved in that. So I just don't think there's any transparency or honesty from the government here, and there certainly needs to be.
Just related to Islamist terrorism, but back in our region, the new leader of Jemaah Islamiyah, the Islamist terror group responsible for the Bali bombings, among other atrocities, well, their new leader has apologised for these terror attacks, said that peace is the way forward, and promises to disband Jemaah Islamiyah, especially given the tensions in the Middle East at the moment, the warfare in the Middle East. Can we take him at his word?
Well, only time will tell. Let's hope that he's sincere. I'm in Ipswich today, and I've been at the RSL sub-branch with veterans of the Middle Eastern campaigns of peacekeeping missions. And when you look at the work that they did and the work, frankly, that we're still doing today with Indonesia, with the Philippines and others to try and defeat the scourge of terrorism, we should tip our hat every day, to be honest, to the men and women who wear our national uniform. They keep us safe, and there is a lot of activity that's taken place in Indonesia over a long period of time, where we've provided support to the police and the intelligence agencies to quash a number of potential attacks on Australian interest tourists, not just in Indonesia but across the region, Chris. So let's hope it's sincere. It was certainly a barbaric organisation that took the lives of many people, including Australians, and we should never forget that.
Yes, indeed. Well said. I was at an event with you last week where former AFP Commissioner Mick Kilty was present as well, and the AFP have been so important in that role as well. Let's bring it back to the domestic economy and the cost of living crisis, inflation and interest rates. There's a report out today from EY that says the combined interest rate bill of state governments and federal governments' debt is $44 billion annually, equivalent to the national defence budget or the NDIS budget. 2 points on this. This level of debt, is it unsustainable? And also, isn't the level of government spending it's fueling obviously increasing the inflation rate and adding to our interest rate problem?
Well, Chris, and the other consideration, of course, is that when you compare Australia to comparable economies in the US, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, interest rates have already started to come down there. And when the Reserve Bank Governor here issues a warning to the Prime Minister and to the Treasurer that the reckless spending has to stop, it has to stop, because it's fueling inflation and Australians at the moment are doing it tough. cost of living pressures on families, their mortgage repayments that have gone up on 12 occasions under this government. It's all as a result of bad policies of the Albanese government. The Prime Minister spent the first 16 months as Prime Minister obsessed with the voice, and he should have been making decisions in the first couple of budgets that set us up to deal with the realities that we knew were coming in relation to the inflation threat and what that means for the economy. But at a time when the Reserve Bank Governor is saying spend less, as you point out, the state governments and the Albanese government are spending more and more, and that's what's keeping interest rates higher for longer.
Well, Anthony Albanese was quick yesterday to suggest that price fiddling by the supermarkets could be helping to push up inflation, yet he seems to have a blind spot when it comes to government spending having exactly the same impact on the supermarkets and the government's approach. Do you think that their code of conduct is going to be tough enough, or are you still insisting that there should be the power for divestiture of the supermarket giants, a threat, I suppose, hanging over them, a more serious threat to make sure that they do the right thing when it comes to price and transparency?
Chris, I just think Coles and Woolies have got it all over the Prime Minister. I think they see him as most Australians do, and that is weak and unable to make a tough decision. The Prime Minister's been sitting on a report that he received from Craig Emerson about what code of conduct should be put in place. For months and months and months and months, nothing's happened. It's like the gambling reforms. It's like everything this government does. They promise a review. They seek the advice of a consultant. The job of the Prime Minister is to make decisions in our country's best interests, and this Prime Minister seems to be incapable of doing that. So do I think that the Prime Minister has the measure, the ability, the backbone, the fortitude to deal with Coles and Woolies? No, I don't. And I think it's why Coles and Woolies are walking all over the Prime Minister at the moment. A government I lead will make sure that Coles and Woolies are profitable, but that they're delivering the best possible outcome for their customers. I don't want to see them screwing over customers or farmers or suppliers, and I want to champion small business. I want to make sure that we have an economy that's working for people, and I want to make sure that people aren't being ripped off. And it appears that Coles and Woolies have a case to answer here, and let's see what evidence is produced and what the ACCC can do. But I just don't think anybody in that position, frankly, a position of power across the business community, has any respect for the Prime Minister at the moment at all.